Welcome back to our World Cup preview. Today we are talking about Wales, not the giant animal in the ocean, but actually a pretty small nation of 3 million people that's made its second ever World Cup. It's very cool. Led by a man with a man bun. Inspirational. They'll be playing in Group B alongside England, the United States, and Iran. If you want to watch videos of me previewing those teams, well, there's a link to a playlist up at the top of this finger right here, because we're doing 32 teams in 32 days. And for Wales, there's a particularly interesting story that starts rather boringly in European World Cup qualification. Initially, it was looked at as a tough group. It was Belgium, Wales, Czechia, and Estonia, who actually ended up drawing Wales at one point in qualifying, and Wales ended up winning half the games. Only loss was to Belgium very early on in the process, 3-1, so they're looking good. They finish in second, and according to the second place table, they finish high enough in second to qualify for the second phase of European qualification. The good news for Wales is that they would have actually made it either way, even if they finished behind Czechia, because they were the highest Nations League team, which determines the last 2 spots of the second qualifying round in Europe. That's because there's only 10 groups, so 10 second place teams, and to make a nice even tournament, they need 12. So those 2 teams were Austria and Czechia. Wales was drawn into Path A with Scotland, Ukraine, and Austria. Now only one of those teams is actually going to make the World Cup. This determines the last 3 spots at the World Cup from Europe. Wales played against Austria and won 2-1, and played against Ukraine and won 1-0. Now this is a match that Ukraine largely dominated. Wales had its moments, but Ukraine outshot Wales 22-10 and outpossessed Wales by 68-32%. He word that. They outpossessed by, I don't know. Wales was outpossessed. Wales maintained 32%. No. Anyways, Gareth Bale scored all 3 goals. He's probably the only player on this team that you know. He absolutely willed his country to its second ever World Cup. And if that sounds like a misspeak, it's not. Wales only made 1 World Cup before this appearance that they were able to engineer through a grueling qualifying stretch, and that was in 1958. Now granted, Wales did make the quarterfinal in that tournament, but I'm sure they would trade that success for more World Cup appearances. What you should take from that, and what is absolutely true, is that this is the Welsh golden generation, and they've proved that in the last 2 Euros. Wales had never made a Euros tournament until 2016, qualified and got all the way to the semi-final, a magic run that included them winning a group with England in it, and then fighting their way through Northern Ireland and then freaking Belgium. Hugh Hal Robson Kanu with the as cool as I thought it would. And they lost to the eventual champions Portugal in that semi-final. And in the 2020 Euros, which happened in 2021, Wales made it out of the group again by picking up a win over Turkey. They didn't win their group this time, they didn't look as good, and they lost in the round of 16 to Denmark. It was a pretty ugly loss, and the end of World Cup qualifying was really a gut check where Wales didn't outclass its opposition, it just found a way to win, which is incredibly commendable. But as we project that forward for this group, there's only one man that can really rake the difference that we've seen in the last 2 years, really. And that is our player to look out for on Wales, unsurprisingly, Gareth Bale. Now, if you don't want to be named the player to look out for, you probably shouldn't score every goal in the World Cup qualifying playoff. But if you don't know Gareth Bale, he was one of the biggest signings of all time, going from Tottenham to Real Madrid, and before he had a falling out with Real Madrid because he liked playing golf more instead, he actually was incredibly productive, won multiple Champions Leagues, Copa del Rey, and La Ligas. He scored some of the most iconic goals in history, including a flambeing of the Barcelona defense in a Copa del Rey final that prompted an announcer to say "the Welshman abroad," which is still one of the funniest calls I've ever heard, because who cares? But it does excellently highlight our point that this legendary player of the game is from Wales, and clearly, even though he's lost a step or 5 from various muscle injuries in his legs, still has the class, and class is permanent. Gareth Bale simply is going to have to make up for his team's deficiencies when it comes to the World Cup. He's proven he can do it at the Euros. He has been dreaming of getting his nation to a World Cup. This is clearly something that means a lot to him, because let's be honest, when Gareth Bale puts on a Wales shirt, the fact that he is now playing in the MLS doesn't matter, and the fact that he didn't care about Real Madrid at the end didn't matter. He brings his lunch pail and his hard hat for Wales. But what does the team look like behind him? Because Gareth Bale's going to do what he does, score a couple of great goals. Will they be able to back him up? Wales knows its strengths and weaknesses and lines up in a 5-2-3 to try and expose those. Expose? Bring those to the fore. The 5-2-3 allows Gareth Bale to be on the right. We're pulling this from their match against Ukraine in the way they lined up. It also allows explosive winger Daniel James, one of the fastest players in the world according to FIFA and Football Manager, to be on the other side of the field. They have options in the middle, but typically they go with this kind of mythical figure named Kiefer Moore, who isn't great at club level, but is also massive and just kind of encapsulates the Welsh vibe. The midfield is sturdy with Joe Allen and Aaron Ramsey. They're both getting on in years, but they can still do a job. Nico Williams at left wing back, though, is an X factor. And if I wasn't going to do Gareth Bale, I was going to go Nico Williams because his match against Ukraine in particular was fabulous. That, and then Ben Davies is a really competent defender as part of the back three, but the back three in general is just about having numbers. Now, the pace of players like Daniel James, Gareth Bale when he really feels like it, and the size of Kiefer Moore make this a very viable counter-attacking team, and that's how Wales have lived. When it comes to the quality of the World Cup, that's really going to be Wales' only option. And as we've seen in the Euros, it works in tournaments. So what are their chances to get out of the group, and what are their chances to actually win the whole tournament? Well, I don't think Wales has any chance to win the tournament. I don't think they have the quality to sustain results against top-level teams. But that being said, any top-level team on a day could lose to Wales. This is how Wales has made it into the top 20 of the world rankings. They were in Nations League A, even though they're getting relegated back down at this point, and they just produce results against good teams. Although that ability has been waning, which makes me not have quite as much faith. Which is good because their first match is the US. And also evidenced by the fact that they drew Estonia and consistently struggled to put teams away. Wales doesn't have the ability to blow out teams they should be superior than. Perhaps in Iran, a team that they could look at as a team they should be able to beat. They have not proven that they can comfortably beat teams like that, especially ones that are as experienced and spirited as Iran. So my group stage prediction is that Wales will make everybody uncomfortable. They might produce a clean sheet, which could get them at least a point. And because of that, and the fact that they have Gareth Bale and nobody else in this group does, except for England, who has probably a few players at least that can match that level, I think Wales finishes third. They find a way to get a draw or two. I do think they're likely to beat Iran, even though that's going to be a fun game. But I also think that Wales is going to struggle against a lower block team like the United States, and I think England is going to be absolutely up for it. They are at a high water mark as well, the same way that Wales is. So I'm picking Wales to finish third. If you want to actually watch these matches, I will be live streaming on Twitch for all of the World Cup. The link is down in the description. I would love to see you there, and there is a link again to the playlist of all of these videos so that you can rattle off that fabulous World Cup knowledge to a bunch of people that don't really care.